Welcome back to Guardians of Gaia, connecting people and planet. We've unpacked how the industrial agricultural food system is impacting people and the planet, causing environmental degradation of land and the pollution of water and air. Sibiwe Mdoda, a land justice educator at Shisimani Center for Activist Education, explains how this environmental degradation happens.
But having used these methods of mechanizing and using a lot of pesticides and all of that, you do find that there are environmental damages that are taking place. And also having to farm things like cattle industrially, it also adds to the greenhouse emissions, because when cattle are locked down together in ranches and farmed in these spaces, scientists have done their work and they have kind of produced results where they show that this contributes to the emissions, that are taking place. The pesticides itself, when there's heavy rains and all of that, the pesticides wash off to the rivers and begin to pollute the water. And all those kinds of, then you get fish dying, you get the alluvial ecosystems getting imbalanced, and all on those kinds of things. So that is the danger. Firstly, we must understand that this system comes with a monoculture, where there is a farming of a single crop year in, year out, year in, year out. And as a result of that, the land, it does lose its productivity, and it is compensated by kind of putting a lot of chemical inputs, on the land. So the land does lose its productive value, because it is planted in a monoculture way, and it is kind of a very market driven form of systems. So that in itself, that is a clear danger to the environment, and the poisoning of water systems, the emissions you are having being getting out of the ground. So this system, where that stocks the shelves in our supermarkets, people need to understand that it comes at this kind of cost, whereby you find that in some of the areas, the signs, in terms of the longer droughts, that are taking place, the flooding and all of that, all these issues that get to explain the climate crisis we find ourselves in. So I think small scale producers, for me, are the future. Food that is actually grown through companies, your Tiger brands and all these companies are actually a danger, to the sustainability of our planet. A new world will not emerge if this order still stands. So looking at looking beyond industrial agriculture is basically a deliberate look beyond, a capitalist and a neoliberal mode of production, which I think, in my view, every struggle that is about defeating them is also responding to the emergence of a sustainable system of producing food.
That was Sibiwe Mdoda explaining how the industrial agricultural system has caused environmental degradation. We know that land degradation is a result of monocropping and leads to soil becoming unproductive from erosion and loss of biodiversity. It is predicted that in southern Africa, areas will be drier with hotter temperatures, more frequent heat waves and droughts because of climate change. South Africa is a water-scarce country, meaning that we're having less rainfall and higher evaporation, resulting in less and less water supply. This means that the sustainable food system in South Africa must restore the soil, conserve water resources, and adapt to hotter temperatures. Let's see how this is done in the Bokkerveld region in the Northern Cape with the Hesselmans, a small-scale farming family.
I'm Noel Utley. I'm the manager of Avontuur Sustainable Agriculture. Avontuur is a farm in the North Bokkerveld that has a huge amount of biodiversity of plants on it. And to date, we've recorded over 500 species of different plants on Avontuur. And That includes both fynbos as well as renosterveld. WWF decided to buy it in order to conserve the fynbos part of the farm, which is about 800 hectares in extent. We formed Avontuur Sustainable Agriculture because we realized there was a lot of valuable biodiversity on the other side of the farm, the renosterveld part, and we thought it important to conserve that. This part of the farm had heavy erosion on it, extensive degradation, and from the start we set out to try to understand what the cause of the problem was and what we could do about addressing it in order to restore the vegetation. Since 2010 we've been busy implementing a whole range of different measures.
The objective, our principles is to keep as much water in the property as possible and allow infiltration. So having this water being stored over winter, like this is a winter rainfall region, so there's a lot of water that we receive in winter. So having this water stored into the hot summer days helps to keep the field alive. There's a lot of water erosion coming down from the slope and water being stored here. Previously, the water would go straight down and form all this channel of gullies, as you can see down here. There's a lot of gullies that were formed before this dam was built. So building this dam has encouraged a lot of regrowth. There's a lot of life. There's a lot of healing downstream.
So what we've done to date on Avontuur in the eroded areas is we've firstly used a lot of the rock that was collected in the past by previous land users. When they ploughed the lands, a lot of rocks were ploughed out of the soil and piled up in heaps. So where we've had to deal with serious deep erosion gullies, we've used transport to take those rocks and built check dams in the gullies. And then against the check dams we've packed shrub, and we've also used a material called geotextile, which is made from jute, which lasts for a couple of years, and in that time, by putting it against the check dams, it makes a filter which keeps back the organic material and the seeds that are being washed down by the water and allows cleaner water to filter through. Avontuur has been a living laboratory for us all for the last years, and in the course of the time we've also held a few training workshops, and a couple of them were sponsored by Jeff Small Grants program, and we had colleagues coming from all over the state Bokkerveld, small-scale farmers, to come and see what we were doing here. And some of the Hesselman family came, Bennett and Rachel and Umbihen, all came and attended workshops here, and they were very inspired, especially looking at these quite hard soils, which are similar to some of the soils they have on their farm, which is called Dobelaskop. And in fact, they were so inspired that they went back to Dobelaskop and got thinking about how they could control erosion there on their harder, heavier soils below the Kop itself. And that led to a project that was funded also by Jeff Small Grants, where they employed a team of people and worked with them to create a series of contour bunds to stop the erosion and catch the runoff water.
Weg en op hierdie plaas sukkel ek mos al van 1961 af met water, want as dit eventjies reën, dan loop die water sommer weer. Die fyn gronde gaan ons nou almal wegdrywe hier af rivier toe. En wat word nou later van hier groei niks op die panne aan harde grond nie. Dit beskadig die weiding, dit beskadig die grond. Nou as jy ek voel so as jy die grond kan opblok en bewaar, dan kan daar mos plante groei. Dis weiding vir die diere en dit is goed vir alles. Die verlangste is ek weet dat en ek is verseker daarvan dat daar sal baie verandering kom.
As ons nou kop toe kom, dan kan ons nou sien ons hande werk en jy verstaan. So dis my verwagtinge en bly so baie verspoelings ook sien nie, gronderosie en die goeie. So dis my verwagtinge aan hoop en bid laat dit die kon doen walle sal stewig wees, dat die water nie nog moet verspoelings maak hierso nie. Laat die water daar vir die opgaan, want doorskop kry ons swaar onder water.
For the future, we want to see Avontuur being used productively as a farm that we can use to demonstrate how land can be conserved on the one hand and also contribute to feeding humanity on the other hand.
That was Healing Our Land, showing how small-scale farmers can adapt their practices for sustainable agriculture. We spoke with Vanessa Black of BioWatch about what is needed to support small-scale farmers who are mostly women and young farmers.
I think, especially when we're looking at small producers, the majority tend to be women because women are the ones that are struggling with hungry families, and they're the ones that really are trying to put food on the table and therefore often go into agriculture. And they just have a hard time. So I think there's a lot of things that can help smaller producers, and the one that I hear from a lot of producers is fencing. Something simple like fencing, because if you can't protect your fields from rampaging livestock, you're constantly putting efforts into something that's destroyed. So yeah, I mean, then that sounds so simple, but it really makes a big difference. As I spoke about, also the appropriate technology. People struggle. They struggle with access to water. So there's a bigger policy level around water rights. Water rights are given over to commercial industries, mining and agriculture. But even where people can access water bodies, how do they get the water? And then often the intervention from government is to give them a pump that needs diesel. They can't fix it, they can't afford the diesel, and then the pump ends up not being used. So what are the more appropriate technologies that enable people to not become dependent on having to find that extra money or those extra inputs? So it's really all those kinds of strategies to building self-sufficiency. I also think validating people's knowledge is a very important one. So it's been years where people's own knowledge has been completely invalidated. They feel like what I know is nothing. And that's not true.
That was Vanessa Black from BioWatch talking about farmers practicing agroecology in South Africa. You're watching Guardians of Gaia, connecting people and planet. And our episode today, we're exploring food and farming for the future and the sustainable solution, agroecology.